in the days when slavery was legal, many slaves chose to try and escape their harsh lives as what their masters called property. They did this even though they knew that if they were caught, their life would be far worse than it previously was. One way slaves escaped to freedom was via the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was a secret network of paths which slaves traveled on to escape to either Canada or the northern free states. Although the Underground Railroad did help guide over 70,000 slaves to freedom, it would have been a failure without all of the determined abolitionists or people against slavery who acted like the train's conductors and led the slaves to freedom. These people included Harriet Tubman, John Brown, Levi Coffin, and Frederick Douglass. Harriet Tubman helped slaves escape to freedom in America, just as Gandhi helped Hindus escape the British rule in India. She said, "I never ran my train off track and I never lost a passenger." These people risked their own lives to help free slaves, for they knew that the slaves' ride on the Underground Railroad would be anything but easy. A slave's quest to find their freedom began by escaping their master's plantation. If they were unsuccessful, they would have no hope whatsoever in finding the Underground Railroad, let alone their freedom. If a slave managed to escape their plantation, they would run far, far away from their master's grasp. Some of them would then look for signs of the Underground Railroad. For example, many abolitionists would light a lamp or lantern on their front porch. This indicated they welcomed and would help runaway slaves. After a slave found a station on the Underground Railroad, they would accept all the help they could get. The slaves' conductors would instruct the slaves on what to do next, and many a times this meant the slaves would be hiding in a secret room for several weeks at a time until their conductor received a message saying their path was clear and the next station was ready for them. The slaves would then set out, usually on foot, to their next station. This meant they would travel on rough dirt roads that were seldom used. If the slaves were lucky enough, their conductor would guide them, making their long and treacherous journey to their next station much quicker. After a long and tiring journey of sleeping in bushes or out in the open forest, with their feet bleeding from traveling on uneven terrain, slaves were delighted when they finally reached their next station, even though they knew their ride on the Underground Railroad had hardly begun. Slaves would find shelter and receive food and whatever medical care they needed at their next station. One of these stations could have been the Milton House Hotel. At this particular station, slaves would enter a log cabin about 40 feet south of the hotel at night to avoid being seen by guests. They would then walk through a trap door, which led to a tunnel. This tunnel led to the basement of the hotel. Here, the slaves would sleep and eat until their conductor, in this case, Joseph Goodrich, received a message stating the slaves were good to move on to their next station. At stations such as the Milton House Hotel, the conductor couldn't travel with the slaves to their next station, for they owned and ran businesses. Because of this, the conductors told the slaves to look for clues, such as pictures on quilts, which hung out on plantations, for these would help lead them to their next station. Some slaves who didn't want to risk escaping, but wanted to help runaway slaves, hung out quilts which contained pictures that would help runaways.